good piece of time on the home. And
The name is very interesting.
But of my first name.
Your first name is?
My first name really is Mazel Tov Fortuna.
Then you're going to say that your whole first name is.
Okay.
Then you get to explain it.
Okay.
And you don't have to look at the camera.
I'll look
It'll
at you.
catch you.
That's
We'll
fine.
talk to each other.
Okay.
I'm ready whenever you are.
Okay. I'm Dory Chortek, and today is Wednesday, October 13th, 2004. We're here to begin the oral history, and we're pleased to introduce Nita Corre. Nita, good morning, and thank you for being here. Please let's begin by having you tell us your whole whole name.
Mazel Tov Fortuna Levi Corre.
And you better explain that.
Well, Mazel Tov is good luck, and which is Fortuna in Spanish, and Fortuna became Fortunita, and that's why they call me Nita.
Tell us a little bit about where you were born and what your early life was like.
Well, I was born in the Rock of Gibraltar, which is a British colony in the southern part of Spain. My earliest recollection was being in Madeira during the war, and that's where I went to the first few grades in school. Few members of the Jewish community were really transplanted to Madeira, and there they formed a very cohesive Jewish community. And I think it was the beginning of my understanding and commitment to a community.
Let's go back just a little bit and talk about your family before they actually got to Gibraltar. What do you know about your ancestors and their Jewishness or non-Jewishness?
Well, in my mother's side, we can trace back to the Spanish Inquisition, to 1440. And they were in Spain, and they were very involved in the Spanish community. And then after the Inquisition, they went all over. They went to France, they went to Morocco, some went to Lisbon, and then eventually they came to Gibraltar. And my father's side, we just go back to the 16th century, and we know more that they were involved in Lisbon, and they were involved in Morocco, and then came to Gibraltar, where they have lived for many generations and very involved in the Jewish community.
Now, let's talk about the Gibraltar Jewish community. You said it was a very cohesive one. What do you remember about the Hebrew school you went to and the kind of home life you had and the friends you had?
Well, I remember growing up in a very loving family, and a family that was totally committed to the Jewish community. My father went to synagogue 3 times a day. My mother was a very gracious lady who really hosted anyone who came to Gibraltar and needed a place to eat a meal or to have some friends. We were brought up with a lot of help. We had every day three maids in the house. We had a chauffeur, and we had a nanny, and we had a dressmaker, but the apartments were very small.
What did your father do?
My father was in real estate, and he worked very hard for the Jewish community. Although his livelihood came from the real estate, most of his time was spent to try and start the Jewish education back in Gibraltar. Gibraltar has a very small Jewish community, about 600 Jews in a community of 25,000 people, predominantly all Catholics and Protestants. It's very cosmopolitan. There are people from India, there are many people from Morocco, there are people from Malta, a lot of people from England, people from Spain. The schools are all held in English, and all the certificates that you get are set up from the high school in Oxford and Cambridge. I happen to have gone to a convent. For the grade school, I went first to a convent because there was no Talmud Torah, which is a Hebrew school. And then when a few community leaders, including my father, opened the day school, I transferred to the Hebrew day school. And from there, I went to the Loreto convent, where I spent 4 years. And many of the nuns who taught my mother and my grandmother were my teachers, too. So there was a lot of continuity in the community.
You said 600 Jews. Is that now, or was that then?
It was then, and it's now. The community doesn't seem to be able to either get bigger or smaller.
Uh-huh.
Very prominent in the total politics of the Jewish community. I think one of the greatest pride of the Jewish community is my mother's brother, who died a few years ago, and he was the chief minister of Gibraltar for many years. was knighted twice by the Queen of England, and he really was the head of the Labour Party, and from his philosophy and the way we were brought up, I really understood very well the question of labour and the importance of getting them involved in decision making.
Mm-hmm. Do you remember any other members of the family, particularly that you were close to when you were living there?
Yes, it was an extended family. I was extremely close to my grandmother and to my aunts and uncles and cousins. All the holidays we spent together, and it was a very loving environment. And a very respectful environment to the elderly, which I think was the roots of my work in the United States afterwards.
So you stayed there how long?
I stayed there through high school, and then I decided I would go. Gibraltar doesn't have any universities or any way of advancing learning after high school, so I went to London to work towards what we called a chartered accountant. And took courses in the Polytechnic, some of the lectures at the London School of Economics, and I was articled to become an accountant. And that's where I met my husband.
And you were in London how long?
I was in London just under 2 years.
And you were part of the Jewish community there?
Yes, in fact, I was part of the Sephardic Jewish community. My brother was a rabbi there, and I had family. And there were many Gibraltarians who had gone to London during the war, and that became the center of my social life.
Uh-huh. You mentioned one brother. Did you have other siblings?
Yes, I have 3 brothers, and I have a sister. 2 of my brothers are in Gibraltar. One is currently the president of the Jewish community there. He's a lawyer and a QC at Queen's Counsel. And the other brother is in real estate, and he has also been the president of the community there. And he was 3 years ago given the MB by the Queen of England, a member of the British Empire, for his work in the community. Mm-hmm. So he was very devoted. And then I have a sister who lives in London, who currently is teaching, but she used to be a principal in a school. And then my other brother, who is the head rabbi of the Sephardim there, and he recently, last year, got an OB out of the British Empire, also for his community work. I think in the roots of my family, there was a total commitment, not just to the Jewish community, but to the general community to do some work.
See, you met your husband in London. Talk about him a little bit. How did that all happen, and who is he?
Okay, my husband came to America at the age of 22. He was recruited by Mikveh Israel, which is the second oldest congregation in the country, to be their rabbi. And he had studied in London, and he had also got his master's degree in Semitic studies at the University of Manchester. And he came to Philadelphia, and when he came to visit his mother 4 years later, I met him at the Chacham's house. He was the head rabbi of the Sephardim there, and he was married to a Gibraltarian. The Chacham was Alan's teacher, and his wife was a member of the Gibraltar community that I knew well.
So you just happened to meet him because you both had similar interests and similar...
Well, we just went to visit people. That's right.
Okay,
and then we got engaged after 2 weeks, and I went back to Gibraltar, and he went back to Philadelphia, and then he came a week before the wedding. I was 19 years old. We got married in Gibraltar, and then we came to... he came back, of course, to Philadelphia. We came to Philadelphia, where he had a pulpit there.
Now, you were still very young then, and you were living in Philadelphia, newly married. Did you get involved in the Philadelphia community?
Yeah, I got involved mostly in the nursing homes there. I got involved visiting older people because that was part of the way that we were brought up, to be able to help the elderly. And part of being in the Jewish community, as a rabbi's wife, I had certain responsibilities of going to meetings and visiting people, and certainly a lot of activities of the synagogue. But my first devotion there was the visits. I used to volunteer at the Jewish home in Philadelphia.
Well, that helped to set the background for your work?
Without any doubt. That really changed my views of what I wanted to do for a professional career, and instead of becoming a CPA, I decided that eventually I would get a bachelor's and master's degree in geriatric social work, and that's what I would do.
And did you do that?
Yes, I did.
Where?
We've had our children in Philadelphia. 3 of our children were born in Philadelphia, and 1 was born in Gibraltar.
Talk a little about your children then.
Yeah, we had 4 children, 4 years and 3 months. Our oldest son, Jacob, is an attorney, and he's at Jenna Block, is a partner at Jenna Block in Chicago, and he's married to Lisa Bernstein, who's a professor of law at the University of Chicago. They have 1 child, Aviva. Then I have a daughter, Giselle, who is married to John Mukant, and they're both physicians. She's a psychiatrist and he's a physiatrist, and they have 2 children, Nita and Jacob. Nita is named after me. We name after the living, and Jacob is named after my son. And then I have my daughter Raquel, who has 2 children and 3 stepchildren, and she's married to Darrell Pure. She works at the Ark with the elderly, and he's a psychologist who practices psychology, and also he teaches at Northwestern. And he has 3 children, Isaac, Rebecca, and Ilana. And Raquel has 2 boys, Alan and Benji. And then we have another son, Isaac, who's really an attorney, but he's a managing director of a hedge fund. And he's married to Diana Newman, who is a vice president at Goldman Sachs, and they have 2 children, Erica and Elizabeth.
So your grandchildren are solidly being raised as Jews, I would assume,
Yes.
given their background.
Yeah, they, one of them doesn't go to school yet, but the other 6 are all in Jewish day schools.
What kind of home did you create for your children to grow up in?
Well, I hope it was a home that was devoted to each other, to as a family, a strong family ties, and a commitment to the Jewish community, and to give them roots. But I hope we gave them the wings to be able to do their own thing. I think that as I look back, it was a challenge. We had 4 children. They were very close in age. I was used to living in a place where I had a lot of help, and people think in terms of coming to America, upgrading their standard of living. That wasn't the case for us. It was more difficult.
All right, so there you are in Philadelphia, lots of little children, and where did you go from there?
Well, then afterwards, Alan got his PhD at the University of Pennsylvania. He got a PhD in linguistics, and he decided he would like to go into academics, and he was offered to become the chairman of the Hebrew Studies Department at the University of Wisconsin-Milwaukee here. So at the time, I was expecting my 4th child, and so he came. We went to Gibraltar. I stayed there with the kids and gave birth to the 4th child, and Alan came here, and then I joined him here. And we've been here since.
All right, you still had very young children, and you had moved to Milwaukee. What kind of a neighborhood were you in?
We moved to the west side.
Mm-hmm.
I remember with fondness the Klitzners and the Gerskis who found us a place in Roosevelt Drive. We wanted to be close to an Orthodox synagogue. At that time, the Orthodox community was not as strong as it is now, and the Jewish education was not as abundant as it is now, which is really wonderful. But so we lived near Anshe Sfard, and that's where we went.
And that was Rabbi Shapiro?
Rabbi David Shapiro, who was a
Yes.
great scholar.
Your recollections of him, anything you'd like to share about?
Well, I think I was in awe of him. He was a man of great knowledge and beautiful qualities. And his wife was very hospitable and always welcomed us to their house and were very nice to our kids.
And they went to religious school there?
They went to Hill for a while, and then they went to the university. UWM had a lab school. They went there. And sometime they went to the public school, and then for high school, 3 of my kids went to Chicago, and 1 went to Riverside here.
So your family basically was strongly Orthodox. Not only were you brought up that way, but you saw that it also went to your children.
My children are traditional, but are not as Orthodox as we are.
Mm-hmm.
I come from a very Orthodox family. Alan did not come from such an Orthodox family, but he embraced Orthodoxy at a young age.
Are your children what my nieces call modern Orthodox?
Well, some I would call modern Orthodox. Others, they're just, they're committed to their community. They're committed to Yiddishkeit. They keep a kosher home. and they're devoted to Jewish education.
And they're Shomer Shabbat.
Not all of them, no.
Uh-huh.
No.
Okay. Now we're in Milwaukee, and your children are growing up. How did you come to the old home? To the
Well,
free institutions?
When my youngest one was 2, my husband thought it was a good idea if I went back to school. So I went back, and they gave me a few credits for the work I had done in London, the courses that I had taken in economics. So I really started as a freshman at UWM. But before that, my connection with the home was that was one of the first calls I made when I came to Milwaukee to see if I could volunteer at the Jewish home. So on Sundays, my husband used to stay with the 4 kids, and I used to go to the Jewish home in 50th Street to serve tea and sponge cake to the residents there. And that was one of the most fulfilling experiences I've ever had in the Jewish home. And then I went to school, and as part of my undergraduate field placement, I did it at the Jewish home under the guidance of Jean Atlas. And then I went back to get my master's degree and went back to the Jewish home to do my field placement. And there was Ben Lane, who was my teacher, my mentor, and he supervised my work for my master's degree.
All right. So now you've graduated. You have your degree.
Well, I knew that I wanted to work in the Jewish community, and I knew I wanted to work with the elderly. So I interviewed at the Jewish Family Service, and I was offered a job there, and I was also offered a job at the Jewish home. It was interesting because at the time the resources at the Jewish home were very limited, so I was offered a job to work full-time, but they could only pay me for a part-time job. But I felt that that's really where I started, and I wanted to continue. So I was hired to help with the move from 50th Street as a social worker to the new home in Prospect Avenue. And I started then as a social worker. The first 5 years I had 5 different jobs. I soon became the casework supervisor, and then I became the director of social services and assistant administrator.
So what year was it when you came to the home at the beginning?
Well, the beginning was in the late 60s. I came as a volunteer, but as a worker at 73.
First job?
It's 73.
Okay.
And I just moved on, and I think one of the advantages I've had in the home was that I've known it as a volunteer and as a student, and as an undergraduate student, as a graduate student.
Are you aware of changes you made in the systems at the home that were important when you were finally in a position?
Well, one of the things that I felt strongly from the beginning was that the Jewish community was the only religious community that only had a freestanding nursing home, but it did not have a continuum of services, did not have the retirement community. And because the home had faced such financial problems, it was not the time to initiate a new facility. But soon afterwards, one of my major goals was to make the home financially viable and then to make it into a continuum of care. And I think that the fact that we have the High Point and the Beta Center and daycare and a clinic in the home and a restaurant, I think that we have expanded the services to the community, but more importantly, we have provided an environment for the elderly people that I think they feel more part of a community rather than just in a nursing home.
Are there pieces of that continuum of care that you feel are still missing or need some strengthening?
Well, you know, I think the delivery of services in healthcare, we're always trying to make it better. There are always things that we can do better. And the day that we think that we have refined it to the point of perfection, I think we should go out of business. But yes, surely, I think that our new campus, the Sarah Chatno campus, I think has one component that I always felt was important, and that's a hospice. I think that the last few weeks or months of your life, they're very, they're private, they're personal, they're time to share with family. There's times of pain, but there's a time of opportunity of saying goodbyes. And I think to have a special facility that is comfortable, and it has beauty, and it has the recognition that the family is very much important part of the team. I think that that's one that we're happy with.
Over the years, have you noticed a change in the clientele, in the residents of the home?
Without doubt. I think that one of the biggest changes that I've seen is that when I started, 40 and 45, 50-year-old people used to place their parents in their 70s and their 80s. And now we get people in their 70s and 80s placing their parents in their 90s and 100. And that's one thing that I have really noticed. I think also that since there are many, many more options, that people only enter a nursing home when they are not able to look to get care in other ways, and I think that that's been wonderful. I think that nursing home should just be an option when other options have been explored and they haven't been able to get it.
So the people who are coming in might very well be a lot more frail.
More frail, they need different kind of equipment, they a shorter time even from their bones and their skins, the care that they need. And that's really one of the reasons why the home is embarking on really a big renovation for its facility.
What about staffing the home? Many nursing homes have had problems getting proper staff, especially personal care workers. How have you managed that?
Well, I think it's a constant struggle, and I think we've worked hard. I think there have been some programs that we've put into place, a recognition program that has helped, and funds to help them go to school that has helped too. But I think that that's a challenge that I think the country is facing a challenge with regard to workers. I think one of the things that we have been able to bring people from the Philippines are very good workers, and we have brought nurses from the Philippines, and that has helped a lot.
So is it a more medically oriented
Without doubt. We still like to have the social model, but the role of the doctors and the nurses and the condition of the residents it's much more compromised when they entered. When we first opened the home, the second and the third floor, there was no one who could have even a wheelchair or walker. Now the people who are in all the floors mostly have walkers and wheelchairs. It's a challenge financially. It's a challenge for people to take care of themselves at that age. The community has a lot of responsibilities, and I think that that's one of the reasons why we have tried hard at the home to secure its future.
To what extent does government get involved in funding the services at the home?
Well, 75% of the residents of the Jewish home are on government funds. Some because they've already used their money, some because they have divested it, and some because they never had it. But in the high point, the percentage of people who get government help is smaller, but the percentage of people who get grants from the foundation of the home is higher.
Now, talk a little more about High Point, because that's a very special kind of protected setting. What is the expectation of most of the residents there in terms of service and what they can do?
I think they come for a number of reasons. First, they come for security, and they come to free themselves from some of the responsibility that they're not able anymore. And in many cases, children initiate it because I think that they want the comfort of knowing that their parents are in a setting that they're not isolated. I think that they're looking for friendship, they're looking for health care if they need it. They need like socialization, and they like to do community work too. I think there are people in the home, in the High Point, who visit the home. For example, our biggest is Min Friedman, who's 99 years old, and she spends 3 or 4 hours a day visiting residents in the Jewish home.
Do you find people moving from High Point to the Jewish home?
There are many people who've moved from the High Point.
More frail?
More frail, or their needs can't be met there. And some people move to the Helen Beta Center, which has really been a wonderful program.
Now that's a residential treatment center too.
That's a skilled nursing facility, but it was designed by the architects of the home and the university to provide care for the people with dementia.
And is there any intermingling among the 3 sites?
Certainly there is, yeah. I think that the High Point residents come for some activities, certainly the synagogue, and they come for the restaurant, and they come for some programs, and they come to visit friends who have been at the High Point and moved there, or people who've just come from the community. Mm-hmm. And yet they have their own separate program, and very, very focused on exercise and socialization, and a lot of music and a lot of lectures.
Now, not so long ago, you gave up, as they say, running the home operation and the foundation and really the major part of all the Jewish service to elderly in the community. And talk about the transition in your own career.
Well, I have really enjoyed the work I've done. I think it was, for me, it was a labor of love. I feel that the residents, I always call them my professors, they've taught me a lot. I've worked with wonderful people in the leadership, volunteers and residents. It was a unique opportunity, and I'm 66 years old now. I retired at 65. And one of my greatest concerns was to make sure that we found the right person, and we're delighted to have Mina Tepper, who is a great lady, and I think she will do wonderful things, and she will continue to build on the things that we have started already. And I think the question of working at the foundation was Marty Stein's suggestion, and I feel that I worked all my professional career to deliver the services, so I think the last few years of my professional work I'm going to devote to perpetuate them by having a foundation that makes things possible. I think too the financial viability of the home is very, very important to the Jewish community. It frees dollars for Jewish education, which is another passion of ours, my family.
And have you had opportunities to indulge that passion?
Well, I serve on a number of boards. I'm involved with WITS, Wisconsin Institute of Study. I'm involved with Lubavitch. I try and mentor someone at the day school, Yes Day School. I'm involved in other facilities where my grandchildren go to school and helping them with fundraising. So I'm involved in other things. I was very involved nationally in the Association of Jewish Aging Services, which I chaired for 2 years.
How do you see the present and the future of the Milwaukee Jewish community? How do you feel about it?
I feel very good about the Jewish community. I feel that it's a cohesive community. There are things that we still all struggle to join together and do the right thing. But when I look back, when I came to Milwaukee 41 years ago, and I see the growth in Jewish education, which I think is the future of our community, I think I'm very proud to have been part of a member of the community here.
So you feel it is the educational piece that will carry us forward?
I think the educational piece, and I think part of that educational piece too is the services for the elderly. I think a community that teaches their young and honors their elders is a strong community.
So if you had to say that there was some lesson in life that you've learned that sort of carried you through a very varied kind of career until the last 40 years, what would it be?
I think basically from my roots in Gibraltar, caring for each other, making the needs of others come first before your needs, and realizing that you don't come in this world. My father always told us that the only thing you take from this world is your good deeds. You don't carry any other luggage.
Is there anything you are more proud of all your accomplishments than any other thing?
Well, as I look back, I think my work in the Chevra Kadisha as president of the Chevra Kadisha was something very fulfilling to me. It was at a time that there were more challenges with the funeral home and the Chevra Kadisha. In particular, they once, a lady who had no family and no relatives, they sent her to Marinette without a tahara, and I was able to arrange to go up there with another person and do a tahara there. I think that what I feel most proud is that although my responsibility was of the home of all of them, that I was able to have individual relationship with the residents and be able to do individual things for them.
Now, are there any particular things that you regret that you might have done differently?
Well, I think that at the time that my children were very young, my responsibilities at the home perhaps were greater than should have been for a person who had children of that age. And I missed some of their graduations, and I regret that.
It's a hard choice to make.
Yes.
Were there any, I mean, you come through as a very happy person. Do you have any happiest moments of your life?
I think certainly the birth of my children and grandchildren and their marriages, and I think knowing that we have a happy family, and hopefully that I've contributed something to the Milwaukee Jewish community and to other places.
And how would you like to be remembered in the Milwaukee Jewish community?
Hopefully as a person who cared for others and was a team member.
Now, is there anything we haven't talked about that you would like to add on? Did we skip something that is sort of important?
No, I think that we have spoken of, I'm very proud of my family and where my roots, and I'm comfortable with who I am, and there's always more than one can do, and I hope that even when I stop working formally at the Jewish Home, I'll be able to be a contributing member of the Jewish community.
Well then, thank you so very much for contributing to the oral history. It's a very interesting discussion,
Thank you.
I think. I hope you enjoyed it too.
I enjoyed it. Not only did I enjoy it, but being with you brings me very fond memories. For 30 years, I occupied the office that was named after your father. And your father was one of the first presidents of the home, and your brother was very involved. So it's really an honor for me to have been with you.
Well, thank you very much. Thank you again. Yeah.
That's great.
That was marvelous, Nita. You got so much, and you talk fast, and it flows. Oh, it's going to be a very good.
Okay.